Okay, welcome and good afternoon to everyone. It's nice to see all of you joining us here today. And we are going to talk about our Appfarm solution, which is called the Diversity Index. So today we are going to go through these 4 parts, starting with the requirement specification and system overview with Jacob from the Diversity Index. Then Theodore is going to talk about how we are selecting our no-code platform and why we chose Appfarm, before we delve into the actual solution. And then we are finishing up with leveraging diversity data in the era of AI, trying to be future forward and focusing on the new buzzword, generative AI and AI in general. So with that, I give it up to Jacob.
Bonjour, messieurs, dames. Bienvenue. Je m'appelle Jacques Lovstad. Je suis le CTO de Diversity Index, and the rest of the presentation is in English. If somebody was getting nervous. Okay, good. So I'm just going to take you through a little bit of the principle of the thing before the guys take the Appfarm solution up. And I mean, the basic idea is to move from the current state-of-the-art in the DEI, which is single-story, personal narrative-driven ways of working, and making a more data-driven approach that actually works statistically and for large organizations, right? So, I mean, this is kind of when I present myself at parties, this is what people think I do, whereas most of my work looks more like this, which is also creating a lot of problems for me at parties, because I walk in and, I'm a data analyst and I present myself, and then I spend the next 3 hours, being asked about my opinion on all sorts of political issues, which is really not my field. So, anyway. I'm just going to take you through a little bit of the basics of the way we work. I'm sure all of you have seen the McKinsey reports and so on coming out on diversity, and their approach to all this is the demographic approach, meaning that they essentially say that there's something unique about being, this or that gender or this or that ethnicity or whatever you can pick from. This has been kind of problematic because, if you look at the last, I don't know, like 50 years at least, or even more of psychological research, you'll see that all kinds of people are normally distributed along all the most important dimensions, like intelligence or personality and so on. So it makes little sense. So, I mean, thanks to McKinsey for kind of bringing this up and placing it kind of on the map for businesses. But we have to kind of work differently if we want this to be scientific. So what we do is we always place diversity in context, meaning that it all depends on who you are compared to the people you're around. And the first paper on this came out in 1959, so I'm still kind of surprised that people in general have taken the demographic approach, because it's not like this is new knowledge. I mean, it's been researched forever. But this is the way we work now. So again, after World War II, I mean, the guy who started this was a Jewish guy who, of course, was wondering about some things from the Second World War, naturally, in this context, and so started his research. So everything we ask about in this survey that we've developed is the relativistic approach. How do you feel compared to other people in your context? Now, there's an added benefit to this, which I'm sure you've already kind of thought about, or if you didn't, here it comes. You can't really go around asking people if they are wait, what happens? Okay, this is not my presentation. How to build a resilient no-code stack. That's not... Okay, we try again. Thank you. Buggy. Okay. Again, you can't go around asking people whether they are, straight or gay, or if they are from this or that country or things like that. That's obviously something you can't do with GDPR these days, and that's good that you can't do that. So what we ask is, how do you feel compared to your colleagues along different dimensions? So instead of saying, okay, are you this or that, it's, do you feel like a man among women, or do you feel like an engineer among economists? Do you feel like, you're a neurodiverse person among neurotypicals, whatever you want. So this is the easiest way to remember it. like we say, there's no diversity on a lonely island. A little meme there. So if you're alone, you're not diversity. You have to be among somebody. All right. So moving on to the kind of technical approach here, from our end, the main point was to send a scientifically validated survey to thousands of respondents. Just last night, was it, Kasper? We got, I mean, 3,000 new data points. So it's, these are pretty large data that we have to process because all these respondents obviously have done a bunch of dimensions to them. And another thing is that we have to be able to get the organizational structure from each company, which is a more complicated task than you'd expect. But for everyone who's ever worked as a CTO in a big company, that's a big issue in itself. And the application, the front end, has to show the managers, the C-suite, especially in the companies, what does it look like in our company? What are the descriptive statistics? So that was very important and still something we're working to get perfect. And I mean, we can go pretty far with the solution front end and all the calculations in the descriptive statistics, but my end of it is the backest end, the R analysis. So the platform also has to be able to dump all the data to me, so I can do the more complex stuff that I will talk a little bit about later. And of course, rapid development to MVP was one of the key points from our side, because I mean, we've been getting clients from day one, so we couldn't really wait around for 3-4 years to develop something. All right, so system overview, super fast. The guys will do more, but I will just say the way we were thinking about it. We need server management up front. That goes into analysis and presentation within the platform that we can show directly to the company and they can access themselves. And we have to be able to dump all of this into the back end of more complex analysis. All right. So employees, of course, have to give us the survey data, and anyone who's been ever employed in an organization know that this is a problem as well. It's like, I mean, where's our CEO, Manav? Where are you at? Yeah, he's all the way back there with the camera. Like he says, there's nothing that nobody likes a survey, but we have to at least make it, survivable. So that's our aim, that people actually answer somewhat. And this is kind of the response that we get from C-suite, but we also, observe that a few workshops later, they get what's in there. And then there's this part, which I think is, for anyone programming R, this is the way it feels. This is Mordor. And this is the kind of response we get when we present to that part. So all in all, it's a pretty heavy package, but on the other hand, this is the way we have to do it these days if we're going to get anywhere, because the problem is that it's been way too kind of lightweight in the field in general. All right? So I think that brings us to the platform, right?
Thank you so much, Jacob. So as you may have guessed already, this is about survey management and how we can map out response within an organization. And in order to do this, we set out to find out how can we solve that in the most ideal way possible. Because if you look at how the process looks like before we actually started with this digitalization journey, then it was about going from a survey that was being sent out and being manually created every single time using a tool called Analyzer. And then once the data had been collected from each organization, then it had to be crunched within R and then presented in Excel and stuff like that before being sent out to the end users or the customers via email and presentations. Now, as you can see, this is a process that results in high quality analysis, but it's very manual and doesn't scale very well. So there's not a lot of customers that are able to benefit from a solution built around this process. So when we're going forward, we decided that we should go no-code, and there's a lot of reasons for that. As Jacob already mentions, we all have already a lot of customers in the pipeline, so we needed to make something quickly that we could go to market with. And in addition to this, we also needed predictability when it comes to maintenance and hosting and ensuring that we could spend as much time actually developing the product rather than making sure it runs. And then last of all, we also needed integrations. We needed to make sure that data could flow seamlessly within the application and also outside. And that is why we ended up on Appfarm, which is a lot of different reasons for, as I will go into on the next slide. Because most importantly, the platform we needed had to crunch a lot of big data. We needed to make sure that it had the power to actually execute everything that we wanted to achieve. And when the time comes, it had to scale to the occasion. For those of you who know Kurt Nilsen, I know there's a lot of Norwegians in the room. You might recognize the wordplay. Tough crowd.
No fans.
No fans, okay. I will not do the solo afterwards then. So in addition to this, we needed a lot of technical features, and Appfarm really delivers on this one. Anything from advanced analytics tool, which makes sure we can present the data in a visually pleasing way to the end users, to the strong server-side functionality that makes sure that we can actually crunch them. And of course, the multi-box functionality that comes out of the box with the Google Translate embedded to make sure that we can present the service to a lot of users in a lot of different languages. The design is also a really important aspect of this because, as Jacob mentions, no one likes taking a lot of surveys. So we have to at least make sure that the survey looks good and feels good for the end users. And also, there's a lot of functionality we have embedded with JavaScript and HTML to make sure that we can actually do everything we wanted to. Yeah, so I'll just skip through the rest here. And for the pricing part, we also needed predictability because this is an internal project that we started just to make sure that this is something we actually can do. And that is why pricing is essential to making sure that the business case is viable. And Appfarm provides a very predictable pricing. It's unlike other competitors, I would say, Power Platform, where you don't really know what you're going to pay. And last but not least, we needed this big focus on security because this is essential data that we need to have control over. And because of the Google Cloud Centers, everything is in order for GDPR compliance. I can't get any applause. I was expecting more of this. Woo! Okay, so hopefully you're a little bit warmer now. So I'll give you over to Kaspar, the lead solution developer for this project.
Thanks, Theo. Okay, so I didn't introduce myself earlier on. My name is Kaspar. I'm the lead solution developer of this product. Both Theodore and I work at KPMG. And in January, February, we sat down with Diversity Index and we thought, okay, how can we make this happen? We chose Appfarm as our no-code solution in order to deliver fast, deliver agile, and some scalable products. The idea started in mid-January. And in June, we were able to release our version 0.1 with our pilot companies. So it's a pretty rapid development, and mainly one developer on the project. Now in August, and now it's October, but in August we delivered our bigger release, allowing companies to onboard themselves and also view the data. So the Diversity Index solution, it's mainly composed of 4 modules. We call them modules. They are actually apps, but we split them into logical apps that provides an end-to-end seamless experience when seen together. We are starting with the onboarding journey. This is the first part that the company itself meets when they go into Diversity Index. In the onboarding module, you're seeing, well, our 4 steps. It's a really simple process. You're uploading your organizational structure. This is essential data because we are using organizational structure in order to see the data in different departments and also get the analytics part for the different departments and compare them between themselves. So you upload the whole organizational structure, which is then mapped out into the system. Then you upload all the users. So we are separating users from respondents. Respondents for us are people in the company that are answering the survey. They aren't actually allowed to see the data and go into the analytics and analysis of it, but they can use the platform as an anonymized user. And lastly, we have the user itself, which is the ones that go into the platform and administrators the survey and can see the data. Right now, we have more than 5,000, this is an outdated number, more than 5,000 respondents over the last 2 months, which is quite a big number for a pretty new solution. And it goes really well. We haven't met any big issues on the survey part of it with the respondents. So with this module of the onboarding, you can start your survey send out. And this all are being administrated into the administration application. And it's as easy as 1, 2, 3, almost. I think it's 4 steps actually, so it should be 1, 2, 3, 4. But let's take a look at what we get in the admin module. So as the name itself says, it's an administration phase where the organization can manage themselves, their users, and their respondents. We are delivering a survey, and the survey is the most important part of this solution. So the survey creation and management of our surveys are essential and a big focus when we develop this solution. Here you can see some of the IDs. We're going to have a short demonstration as well. So here we are, the company called Faker Y. It's a demo company. They have 2 completed surveys. As an administration, if you administrate more companies, you can of course select the company. And all the data is being preserved within this specific company, ensuring that it doesn't share data across all companies. You can see your hierarchy, which is essential for our calculations. And also move on to the survey part of the administration app. Our surveys are created using a validated and tested research base. So we are using a default survey, which Jacob and Manav in the diversity index has validated. And all these surveys are unique for your company. This ensures that we can add new questions, we can add new answers, answer options. You can also combine it with a people survey in order to make it bigger than only diversity index. Speeding things up, because it's a bit of a tedious process right now, we are optimizing it all the way. You are having a new, fresh survey straight out of the Add New Survey box. So when that's done, we click OK, and then we can go into the survey and administrator some of the settings, saying that it's ready for publish. You can select the start date, end date, and so on. Then you can add all the respondents manually if you want, but CSV upload is much easier. And also through the onboarding app, you have this automatic input. And then you can send all the invites out using email. Super easy to use, and we're optimizing the user experience all the time. Moving on to the next module. So we have onboarded the company. The company has set up their own survey. They started it and sent it out to the respondents. The respondents can range from 500 employees to 2,500. Those are the companies we are looking at right now. So it's a quite big number of respondents. All of these respondents get an email, a customized email from us saying, please feel free to enter the survey. And then they get sent to this page. So here we are collecting the data from the respondents. This is the essential and most, I would say, complicated part. It looks really simple, but survey data, for those that has worked with it, is a pain. It's a bunch of data, and having this essential data not being lost is a crucial part of the system. So in the survey module, that is where the magic happens. And we're going to show a short demo. So this is what the user sees when they are going into the system. They can select their language. It's super easy to add new languages with Appfarm's built-in internationalization part. And here we are seeing some of the questions from the survey. So we are asking the employees how they are feeling different and what makes them diverse in some way. We're then asking them to fill out this big survey. Just going to speed things up because we don't have too much time today. We also divide the survey into 2 parts. So we are looking at the employee part, where all employees answer, and then the manager part. This makes sure that we can mirror the categories and see how the managers are comparing themselves to the employees. So Jacob is going to go into that point later on. It's a more analytical, research-based than the actual platform. Now that we have all the data gathered from our respondents, we are seeing the actual results in the analytics module. So when the survey finishes, we are going through a big calculation that runs on a schedule. So every night we check if the survey is done. If it's done, okay, start the calculations. These calculations are are quite heavy sometimes, and that's a real benefit of Appfarm. Having the ability to write JavaScript code, custom code, in order for us to deliver what we actually want. Not all can be done with blocks and building blocks. We have to do some code as well. So this is a huge selling point for our part when we selected the NoCode platform. This allows us to give meaningful insight into the survey data, helping the customer understand, okay, how are we actually leveraging diversity data, how can we leverage it, and how can we provide a new strategy in order to really comprehend and build our DEI strategy. And as I mentioned in the first part, we are using the departmental hierarchy, the way the organization is structured, in order to give the best possible analysis on a departmental level. We also include some visualization because no one understands numbers when it's just dumped on you, so we need to visualize it. With Appfarm, we have the ability to have advanced charts, which is really great. We are using it a lot. These are some of the visuals you can see, and we have some more advanced as well. And the last point is the most crucial part of it, the anonymity and privacy assurance. Because diversity data is quite personal. It's, well, it's my answers. If I feel different in gender or in work experience, that's my data. Ensuring that we doesn't share who is actually answering these questions and providing the answers is a crucial part when we are building the solution. So what we do is we take, okay, the respondent in itself, where we store the email, which we use to send out. Those can be used to actually track down the person, right? So privacy here, basically 0. What we do is we take all the data. We move it to another part of the solution in order to strip all the personal information out. And then we started aggregating. So we are not looking at the single data point in itself, the single individual. We are looking at it as a whole. So as a department, you're seeing our employees as long as there are more than 5 employees in the company or in the department. This ensures that we doesn't see the single data point, a single person or respondent, but we see them as a whole. So that's the visual graphics of the analytics module. Now, I know some of you are technical, and we want to give you a small peek behind the curtains. This is a no-code convention, after all. So this is Appfarm Create, and this is how we are building it. What you see here is basically what you get, and that's real beneficial for us. Not Theodore, and neither I'm not a UX designer, I'm not a designer at all, but having the ability to see the actual product in some way makes it super scalable and flexible and agile to work with. That's not all. You can see that we have some functions here and there. We are calculating something all the way. And the visual part is, of course, what the user sees. They don't care about the data behind or the actual logic that happens. So for us to go into the actions and set up the more advanced calculations, it's quite beneficial. Here you can see the actions part of the app, where we calculate the effect size. This is one of the more advanced calculations we do. We are using a combination of the low-code blocks, the building blocks itself. For example, iterate all and then create new objects. And in these small property parts, the values, we are returning some scripts. And these scripts, and for us to be able to use custom code inside a no-code solution, is what makes us actually having the ability to use Appfarm. And this is an example of the code component that we're using. It's not super advanced right now, what you're seeing on the screen, but it's something that we need to have the ability to do when we are looking at developing this platform. Okay, so that concludes the short demonstration of the Diversity Index platform. We'll be happy to take some questions afterwards, but before that, I'll give it back to Jacob, who's going to talk about, one second, back to Jacob, who's talking about leveraging diverse data in AI era.
I just did that one. Thanks.
Thanks.
All right. Thanks, Kaspar. So I'll try to bring this back to the conceptual level a little bit again. Now, usually when Manav and I are out there presenting our results, we'll take 1 to 2 hours to present the statistics. Now I have, 10 minutes. I'll keep this super superficial. Okay, but the first thing we do that the platform does as well is to give each organization an index that ranges from 1 to 5. And this has to do with the Norwegian standard for working with diversity. It goes from basic, which is just regulatory, to like level 2, which is where we usually come in, because that's where an organization says, okay, we are conscious that there's something called diversity. We might have to work with that. And then the different degrees from 3 and up, that's where you actually include diversity as a part of the business case and part of actual value creation. It's not just a conscious thing that you're aware of anymore. It's over into actual, value chain work. Okay? And one of the fallacies that we see out there, just to mention that, is that every time we bring up diversity, people are talking about recruitment and hiring, because I think that's where a lot of busy leaders think the juice is. But as we also always say, that if your organization is not rigged for it, it doesn't matter who you recruit, because they'll probably quit. And if you don't have a rig for it, then you probably won't be able to use the diversity for anything constructive. So it'll be a little bit of a pointless exercise by itself. It has to be combined with an organizational development. All right, and this is also one of the important metrics, intersectionality. Like you saw in Kaspar's demonstration, you can click on several types of category at once, right? So one person might have several degrees of diversity. Okay? So I'm half Polish, but I also have usually a different background with education in most places I worked, and I can stack that on top of each other. And then you'll get number of intersectionality categories that each person has. So we can both show, how many hits you have in an organization, which is basically, diversity hits just means that this is how many times people have clicked on the different categories, the diversity intensity, if you will. And on the right-hand side, you see that there's a distribution of how many people have clicked how many times. So the majority is here on the left-hand side is 300. This is, by the way, real data that we just tampered with it so that it's anonymous, but the proportions are pretty correct. So most people are in the majority on the left here, this gray area, what's it called, the bar. And then you have this distribution going to the right. And one thing we often bring up is that, in most cases, you see that people are diverse in many ways at the same time. At least 2 or more. Most people are from 2 and up, right? Which goes also back to a psychological principle that we tend to, as human beings, think that other groups are homogeneous, while we ourselves and our group is heterogeneous. So this is also a big point in that, the people that you think of as over there, they are actually just as complex as you and your own group, which is an important point. Then we get this. This is still in the platform, and it's one of the most important graphs, because it shows the difference between how leaders consider the situation, how the majority considers the situation, and the minority within the company considers the situation. So as you probably have read ahead already, the inner line here is the minority. The majority is over here, a little more out, or considerably more out actually, and then you have the leaders all the way on the outside in most cases. And this is what we often see in organizations, by the way, that the minority often goes toward the middle, and the majority and the leaders are often pretty close to each other, but the leaders are definitely more optimistic everywhere we've been so far. So that often triggers a few interesting discussions in most places that we've been visiting. All right. Now I'm going just to move over to the R side of things, the more heavy data analysis. I'll keep it super brief because I know you're not necessarily here to have like a data analysis conference, but I'll bring it up because it's important. So this is where we take the data dump from Appfarm and integrate it into a more, let's say, heavy environment. And this is where you can say things like, look, if you look at this slide, you see that these are the 5 categories of what we call maturity categories that we measure, which is like how much conclusion belonging is there, how much authenticity, competence utilization, leadership, and development opportunities. I don't have time to go into all that right now, but here we can then map how those 5 maturity categories in the organization relates to KPIs. So here it's subjective well-being at work, which is one of the most important ones. That's, going back to psychological research all the way back to the 80s. It's basically how are you doing? How well are you off? Not the same thing as happiness, which is, when you're super happy, that's another thing, but it's, how content are you? All right, this is important because if you want to improve on KPIs, you have to know which of these categories actually have an effect. And we found that usually we are at somewhere between 50 to 70% explained variance, which is, for those of you not interested in statistics, that's a huge, effect size. And of course, you can plug in anything. We usually always plug in motivation and meaning, but we can also put in, days of sick leave or bonuses or how many hours of invoiced company time you have, things like this. So it's something that we can directly put into what's important to the organization. Then it gets really complicated. This part of the analysis I did this morning for a big company that we're working with, and just running the algorithm takes a half an hour. And what we're looking at here is basically how does, for example, intersectionality relate to subjective well-being at work. But it's not quite that simple because the effect is not direct. It goes through the different maturity categories that we've been showing you, all right? So the question is, how does, the question is, does the intersectionality, have any effect on subjective well-being at work? And the answer is that, well, it depends. And what does it depend on? Well, it depends on these things. And in this particular case, it's competence utilization and development opportunities that are the big factors here. And for every time you click on a new diversity category, like every degree of diversity you have, in this particular case, you get a decrease of 6 to 9% per click in terms of subjective well-being at work. So, and it could be, again, the same thing from motivation or meaning, or we could plug in days of sick leave, bonus, whatever you want, right? So it becomes really, really precise. All right. So machine learning, that's the part where we get into AI. I mean, for us, if we have enough respondents, we can map up the organization without getting assists from AI or machine learning. But what we see is that, we also work with smaller companies, and then it's nice to have big data that we can use machine learning to, for example, make educated guesses for this company that is smaller. How many days of sick leave can you expect, and how can you, what can you expect with your smaller size based on big data? Okay, makes sense? So that's where we can plug in machine learning and make good guesses for those who are not big enough to do the full analysis. And this is a meme I think is important in this day and age where everybody's talking about AI. It's like, if you want to talk about AI, you can't neglect statistics and mathematics and also algorithms. But it's become a buzzword. But what we're doing is machine learning and statistics. And it's not Gen AI, but it's the other AI, the traditional AI. All right? Cool. So 4 minutes to go, if somebody has any questions.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I had a question, maybe best suited for Casper, but I'm not sure. It was on your point about anonymizing data set for when you survey people.
Yeah.
So for context, I was looking into a DEI project for our work, and one of the things we ran into was repeatedly surveying a group. The results of the survey to be different depending on who asked. The survey was anonymous, so with the size of the group and the different groups that we asked, different people would respond each time, so the results weren't super useful to us.
Okay. Yeah.
Is that method like a one-time only kind of report? Because afterwards you don't know, you know, you can't
Yeah.
view the same data from like a different, you know, a different filter, so a different group, you know, maybe on a department level compared to a seniority level. Does that question make sense?
Absolutely, absolutely. So what you're asking is, how can we actually see the trends of the data going forward when we don't have the personal information? Is that some part of it?
Yeah, I think I'm specifically saying, asking if internally the response to a person's survey is linked to that person, so that at a later point in time
Yeah.
you could pull up their data as part of a different report, or would you need to resurvey each time because it's anonymized?
Yeah. Also, so the part of us anonymizing this survey is crucial for us not to be what's called too open to the company. You know, when we're looking at the companies itself and the respondents are trying to answer it and understand how are we leveraging it for our company strategy, they don't want to include themselves as a human being, right? They want to include themselves as a part of the whole, but their perception is the most important thing. So we need to strip all the data, both for anonymization and privacy, of course, but it's not a single data point that's interesting. It's to see it as a whole, see it as a part of a department. So going forward and seeing trends, for example, or new sample sets, we are looking at the departmental as a group, compared to another time, place and time, when the department answered the same survey. You want to elaborate?
Yeah, I can also say a couple of things on that. I mean, I do agree that that's a possible problem, and you might say that each survey is a one-off in that respect, and we're thinking that yearly service is the way to go. But with regards to it being kind of representative data from year to year, we look at, of course, response rate, which has been quite good. I think we've been close to 80% lately in some cases. And we also look at the distribution between departments, so that we know that, you know, it's not just the IT department replying this time, things like that. So it's even distribution and high enough response rate mainly. But as Kasper says, we can't really store emails to see if, you know, this specific person has changed anything. But that's why we have the index and so on. We want to know how is the organization matured, and, you know, how is it going in general with regards to these psychometrics, right? But yeah, I mean, hypothetically, if half the business, you know, goes away, like in X or formerly Twitter, you know, just everybody jumps ship, then yeah, then that would have to be something that you have to tackle. Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you for your question. Any other questions? Some thoughts? Nothing you're wondering about? It was super clear, the whole presentation? Okay. Well, we thank you all for being here. And if you want to learn more in person, we are going to be walking around both today and later tonight, as well as tomorrow. And if you want to know more about Appfarm, the actual thing that we're here to talk a bit about, of course, visit them on Stan. And be sure to catch up on the next session, 4:15, at the master stage. So thank you all for being here. And yeah.
And tonight at the party, we will, of course, as we get later into the evening, we'll be talking more and more about statistics with you guys. I know Kasper is dying to do so.
Yeah, looking forward to it. All right, thank you all.
Thank you.